Silver medal in the marathon in LA in 1984. He also took world cross-country titles in 1978 and 79. Now the story goes that he used to run to school 12 kilometres every day. We'll check that out a little bit later on, but of course it was that run in LA that crowned his athletics career. Down the field for much of the race, he ran himself into contention around the 20-kilometre mark, and he entered the LA Coliseum in third place, but moved into the silver medal position with just 150 metres to go as he overtook Britain's Charlie Spedding, who was a guest here last year. The Irish television commentary of Jimmy McGee went down in history, listing the previous Irish Olympic medal winners up to that time before culminating in the words, and for the 13th time, an Olympic medal goes to John Treacy from Waterford, the little man with the big heart. I'm delighted to say the little man with the big heart is right here. It is John Treacy. Let's crack straight on and talk about the race in LA. For much of that race, you were pretty much down the field and people weren't talking about you. When did you start thinking to yourself that you might have a chance here?
Well, I was trying to make it difficult for myself because I ran the 10,000 metres beforehand. Yeah. And I never tried to do things the easy way. And finished 9th in the 10,000 metres, where Mike McLeod wound up with a silver medal. Fantastic run. And so I dusted myself off and got ready for the marathon. I had trained for the marathon. That was my goal, was the marathon in Los Angeles. And I had trained in the heat to get ready specifically for it. And so I was ready to run. But I was just kind of... There's one other piece that we forgot to mention. I hadn't run a marathon before. So my first race was the Olympic marathon. So being from a small country, I had my credentials winning cross-country championships and stuff like that and qualifying through the 10,000 metres. And so I was selected to run for Ireland, so that was a big advantage. So I was going into this marathon having never ran a marathon before. So I was kind of plotting my way around, and I said what I would do is I would try to follow some of the favourites like Salazar and things like that. So I followed Salazar for the first 5k, and I realised he's not going very well. So then I saw Seco up the road, and I said I'd follow him. So I followed Seco, and we just ran. You try to bury yourself in the pack in a race like that. Make sure you drink plenty of water early on. And at halfway, I found myself up with the leaders. And from coming from a 5k, 10k background, we went through 5k, and I felt like I was out for a Sunday stroll. So the real race hadn't started yet for me. And then, of course, Charlie was there. Charlie Spedding, he was the first one to make a move at around 20 miles, and he pushed on. And then 4 of us got away. And I'm thinking if I hang in here, I can get a medal. And then Lopez, about 3 miles to go. We're 4 of us run together, and Lopez makes a move. And like I was trying to sprint to keep up with him, so I had to let him go. And then Joseph Nassau goes off the back, and then it's left to Charlie and myself over the last 3 miles. And I think Charlie and myself knew if we stayed together, both of us would medal. Even though we were trying to beat each other, if we stayed together, we realised both of us would drag each other along. And I tried to burn Charlie off coming into the stadium about 600 metres before the stadium, because I wanted to run to the stadium and enjoy the last lap. And Charlie then caught me again on the downslope into the stadium, and I had him on my shoulder, and 300 metres to go I moved away from him again. So I'm beaten by 3 seconds. So I ran the last lap in 67 seconds.
It's not a bad debut as marathons go, is it?
No, it's not.
But there must have been a point, or many points in that race, where although you'd actually trained for it competitively, here you were doing it for the first time. There must have been things going through your mind going, am I doing this right? Do I need to be doing this now? Or does it become just you, the road, the metronomic repetition of one foot in front of the other?
I was racing. I was on instinct. So I wasn't even thinking along those lines. I was thinking of just pushing myself to the very limits of my own ability. And like I had trained, I had done 29-mile runs, and I had done 26-mile runs, and I had done 23-mile runs. So I knew I was well capable of covering the distance. And fortunately, I never hit the wall that particular day, and I ran straight through it. And it's just one of those type of races where you go at it, and you felt good all the time, and you just pushed on. But none of those kind of negative thoughts ever enter your mind when you're out competing as an elite runner. You just don't think along those lines.
Right. And that stadium, that's a pretty impressive place to run into. But it was, as I remember, it was quite a decent day as well, was it not?
It was a fantastic day, yeah, fantastic day. I don't remember too much running around the stadium during the race, because I was still, the only thing that was on my mind was beating Charlie. Instinct again took over. And but when I finished the race, then I kind of took in the surroundings a bit, and I was very conscious my wife was in the stand somewhere, and I kind of knew the section she was looking, but I couldn't find her anywhere. You know, when you kind of strive for a moment like that in your career all your life, and you want to share it with someone, and so I was conscious that she was somewhere in the stand. But I think the big piece really around it was the medal ceremony, because the medal ceremony wasn't just a medal ceremony. This was staged in the middle of the opening, of the closing ceremony, in the middle of the stadium, and it was really kind of a special medal ceremony, and that was a fantastic moment. I think the moment for me though, when you do something like that, is really, it's not really about any of the things that you might think it is about crossing the line. Yeah, when you cross the line, there was a feeling of huge relief. Huge relief first was the first kind of sense I had, and it was relief because I knew I could do this. So that was the first sense that I had, and then there was obviously the joy, and there was a great kind of a bit of a laugh with Charlie Spedding, because my legs seized up after the race, and Charlie was kind of lifting me up into the over the curb and trying to help me along gently, you know, up to the podium. He was having a laugh with myself, so that's just the way Charlie was. And but the great thing about achieving something like that is really when you're alone for the first time after all that, and you kind of sink in. You said, "Yeah, I did this." And it's about self-fulfillment, and that's really when that moment hits you. And for you marathon runners that will run tomorrow as well, that'll be the moment when you're alone for the first time. You said, "I achieved this. It's fantastic to do this."
Just as an aside, having run into the stadium at the end of the marathon and had your medal ceremony as part of the closing ceremony, the modern way seems to want to split marathons and the track, and quite a few championships these days, the marathon's out on the road, doesn't even see the stadium. The marathon should finish in the stadium, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it should finish in the stadium, absolutely. I suppose, I don't know why they don't do it. In some meets they do it, and some major championships they do it. I think for marathoners it's always nice to finish in a stadium, because you are from the world of track and field. You've always been from the world of track and field, and certainly I'd like to be finishing in the stadium.
Yeah. Your medal in LA, very different circumstances and conditions to your two world cross country titles. Let's talk about 78 first. What are your memories of that?
We all have memories of all these things now, because everything is on YouTube, or you can look at everything now. When you can go back and look at these things, and I have tapes of all these races. But again, that was my first World Cross Country Championship ever, and I mean at senior level, and I was running in the States and running for Providence College, and I had just come off an NCAA 3-mile championship which I won. I beat a bunch of Kenyans that were running for UTEP at the time, and we had a fantastic race in Detroit, and I was coming off that confidence of running a fast 3 miles indoors, and so we went to the World Cross Country, and again we trained, distance runners train hard, it's the nature of the beast, so 12k wasn't going to be a problem for me. And when I saw the conditions of the course, well, being used to running on the conditions like that in Ireland all the time, we run real cross country like you do here in the UK, and that's real cross country where you shovel through mud and run through mud. And again, the race started off, and again, one of those races. Usually, the World Cross Country is very quick, from running indoors in the track, I felt, oh, it's fine, pace is fine. So again, three of us got away again, and I was hanging in there, and I'm hanging in, and I'm saying, hanging in, and I'm saying, God, if I can get hanging with this, I can get a bronze medal. And then about a mile from home, I said, have a go trying to win this thing. So going up the steep, I decided where I was going to make my move. At the crest of the hill, go up and make a move and see if you can get away. And by the time you get across the crest of the hill, sprint like holy hell to open up a gap. And that's exactly what I did. And I opened up my 3 or 4 seconds, and I held it to the end. And it was, again, one of those moments in your career where you think, wow, I never expected this to happen. And that really was a very joyful occasion for me, because I actually didn't expect it to happen myself.
Now that was in Scotland, I think, wasn't it? 78. Of course, 79. You were virtually at home in Limerick, weren't you?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, awful to run the World Cross Country Championship in your home country, being the defending champion. So expectations were everywhere, and I was someone, when I'm preparing for a race, like to prepare quietly, and don't like any fuss. And I'm from a place called Villarstown, which the population of Villarstown is 100 people. So it's in rural Waterford. And it's really a lovely place and a fantastic place. But we had, all that week, we had journalists coming, TV cameras coming, and all this kind of stuff. And of course I didn't want any of this stuff. But anyway, you had to put up with it. But when I went to Limerick, I was happy because I was back into the racing environment and I was ready to run. And then, of course, it's funny again, one of those moments in my career, the moment I woke up that morning, I knew I was going to win. I never had that feeling ever, well, maybe one more time, but woke up that morning and I was absolutely certain I was going to win the race. And after about 400 yards into the race, I knew it was going to happen. And Leon that year, and I remember moving up to him, I think maybe after a lap and a half, and I heard the cheer from the crowd. It was about 30,000 people cheering on, and then I realised they cheered me on because I had actually taken the lead for the first time. So going by the stand the second time, I moved away and sprinted hard and let the crowd lift me. And after that, then it was a matter of ploughing on and running through the mud and the water. About 2 laps to go, I said to myself, this is all over. And within 2 seconds I was down the ground. I slipped and fell. So you lift yourself up again. I said to myself, after I lifted myself up, washed the mud off my sweat, I said, you clown, yeah. Well, I call myself a stupid gobshite, let's put it that way. But the last lap was very enjoyable, and I could have ran on forever in that race.
When you look back at that race, when as you say, 30,000 people at the venue, but the weather the night before had helped. It had rained quite heavily, hadn't it? Well, Mickey McLeod, of course, says it didn't rain at all, and they just put all the fire hydrants out to make it a mudlark for you. But the conditions do help if you're used to it. And you can handle it. A lot of the other athletes who were winning in Europe were running on hard ground, weren't they?
They were, yeah. And we had run the conditions, like Mikey, myself were talking last night, and it was fast course, and we were all looking forward to it. And but I don't know what happened. Something poured rain, absolutely started raining about 4 o'clock on a Saturday and never stopped. So the place was covered in mud and water. So, hey, we'd take it.
You must be delighted to come to a place like this. This is an event which is on the up and up. It's only the third year. We've had the second year of the Sacuony seminars. We've had the great and the good of distance racing. It must do a little flutter in your heart to come to a place like this, to see the strength of distance running, particularly this year of all years.
Yeah, it's great. Someone asked me yesterday, was it my first time in Brighton? And I said I wasn't. I was down here when Steve Ovett was living down here. We were down here with him when we were training at one particular stage, and I would have been a big fan of Steve Ovett and what have you. So, but it's fantastic. Tim and Richard, who I know very well, invited me to come and speak, and I'm delighted to do that. I think for myself, it's really kind of something nice to do and meet the likes of Rob and Michael McLeod and what have you, because certainly Mike McLeod and myself would have clashed many times on the track down through the years. Sometimes I came out ahead. He probably came out more times ahead than I did, and certainly if he was around the last lap, he had no chance because he was very quick. But it's great to kind of come back into this environment and talk about the old days, talk about track and field, and talk about if we were running today, would we run with the Kenyans? And I share a view with a lot of people that we would be able to run with them. So it's nice to get that back into the environment, because I'm in an environment where I'm the chief executive of the Irish Sports Council. We're dealing with 65 different sports, and so it's nice to come back and do something in the sport of track and field. But it's fantastic as well to see the success of the Brighton Marathon. And it's fantastic that a lot of people are coming and running this fantastic race, and they'll have a fantastic day tomorrow. The weather's going to be great, so enjoy it.
One other thing that struck me about reading about your career was that, unlike Ron, who had a very Ron Hill, who had a very sort of individual way of training. I love the story he told earlier. He found where he's working, and then he drew a line and found 5 miles of where he can live. Your approach to training was different. I suppose that a lot of that had to do with the fact with the American collegiate system. I suppose if you want of a better phrase, it's a semi-pro atmosphere anyway, isn't it?
It is. I think there's 2 pieces or 3 pieces around America that really is beneficial if you're a track and field athlete. One is you go to an environment where you have other athletes that are all training at the same level. So our group, when we were training in America, we had 20 guys. So if you went for a 20-mile run or 23-mile run on a Sunday morning, you were talking about the weekend, and by the time you realised that you had 20 miles done. So it was easy, right? And then if you went to the track and you were doing quality sessions, say if you were doing 20 quarters or 10 halves, you wouldn't have to show your nose in front until about 7 or 800s, or the 15th and 16th quarter when the other guys were going out the back. So you were carried along, and it was a great environment. And you'd always find someone that's kind of at the same level as yourself, and they're pushing on. And that's the type of environment that you can train easily in, and you enjoy it. And there's a great sense of kind of a team kind of piece around it, where everyone is pulling for each other. So all those type of things are very important. Then there's the competitive structure between 18 and 22. So rather than going straight into senior ranks, you're competing against guys your same age. So you have that piece, that time to develop. And the third piece then is you have an opportunity to get a very good education by going to a good university in the States. And I think that's a real kind of selling point that a lot of people don't actually see or think about.
Strong indoor season as well.
Yeah.
You did a bit of indoor running. Does that help you run outdoors? I mean, do you have to be a very different type of runner to be able to do both, or specialise in one?
I wasn't a specialist in indoors. I suppose during college I ran indoors. I won an NCAA title indoors, and it didn't suit me as a runner. I liked long straightaways, cross-country road running. Really did suit me. Taking bends all the time didn't suit me that much. I didn't have that low sense of gravity, that Eamon Coughlin had flying around the boards. But I enjoyed it. It was a means to an end in the end.
Okay. And you mentioned your professional career now in terms of looking after Irish sport. Where is Irish sport in the world in terms of athletics? Do you have a sunny outlook on the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, we do. What's actually happening in Ireland at the moment is there certainly is a running boom or a physical activity boom. So a lot of people are actually exercising for the sake of exercising. The economy we're in recession like everyone else, but there is positive outcomes to the recession in that people are exercising more. So we're seeing our participation numbers increase fairly substantially right across the board in all the age groups that we would maybe target, particularly women as well, which is particularly good to see. That's on the participation side. In terms of the high performance side, we've developed high performance systems around the various sports, and we're seeing sports emerge and produce top class athletes. In track and field, we have a lot of junior people coming up, and maybe in 4 or 5 years' time we'll see them emerging. But in other sports like boxing, we will certainly have people in contention in London. In sailing, we would expect to have someone in contention, and maybe we might have someone in contention in swimming as well. Like if Ireland come away with 1 or 2, we got 3 medals at the last Olympic Games. If we came away with 3 medals, we'd be absolutely delirious with ourselves. Because what we forget is we're a country of 4 million people, which is small, you know. So, and our main sports, our three main field sports are soccer, rugby, and Gaelic sports. So you take those away, and the Olympic sports is this very small kind of nucleus of people. So that's what you're up against. But I think we have a good crop of athletes going to the Olympic Games.
Well, very good. Very best of luck with that, John. It's been fascinating to listen to you. You're coming back a bit later on, and I think you're going to be on with our next guest, Mike McLeod. So that'll be another fascinating tussle. But in the meantime, John Treacy, everybody. Thank you very much.